Welcome back. You're watching The Global Eye. India is a key player in Australia's economic strategy. Speaking exclusively to CNBC TV18, Australian Minister for Resources Matthew Canavan said that his country has identified resources, education, agriculture and tourism as some areas to expand cooperation. The minister expresses confidence that Adani Group's Carmichael Mine would begin production in 2021, and he hopes that it would cement long-term trading ties between India and Australia. Take a look at this special conversation.
Our first question would be about trade in terms of coal, and probably that's one of the main reasons why you're here. The recent report by the chief economist of Australia had said that the Indian market would be the most appealing for the Australian coal sector. What plans do you have during this visit?
Well, I very much want to grow the relationship that we have between our two countries. Already, the export of steel-making coal, coking coal from Australia, is our largest export to India. It's about half our exports to India. And we now sell more coking coal to India than any other country in the world. We're a very strong coking coal, we're the largest coking coal exporter in the world, but India now is our major market. I also think there are opportunities, though, in energy-making coal, thermal coal. We will never get anywhere near supplying India's needs for power generation coal in this country. They're too great. India already produces about 3 times what we produce as a nation. But we do have a high-quality coal. We have a niche, high-energy content coal that can supplement other countries' domestic production, as we do with China, and blend to a high-quality standard, which is particularly important to meet India's environmental aims of reducing carbon emissions and air quality as well.
Talking about your meeting with Gautam Adani. Now, Adanis have a mine in northern Australia that has been in the pipeline for about 5 to 10 years now. How soon can this mine begin operations, and what is the timeline that we're looking at?
Well, look, the positive thing for our two countries is the mine is starting. I've been a big supporter of that investment, of the Adani investment, primarily because it's important to establish and cement the potentially strong relationship between our two countries. The way we're going to grow and develop our relationship is by investing in one another's countries and building that long-term relationship. So it's not just a trading relationship where we buy and sell from each other from month to month, but we establish long-term, contractual, cemented interests in each other's nations. And Adani is the largest Indian investment in Australia by far. So very important. Now, yes, it has had delays. There has been some controversy about it, but there's always going to be some controversy when you seek to open up a new coal basin, the first that would happen for 50 years in Australia. Yes, there's those opposed to coal production in Australia. But we're a democracy, just like your country. And we had an election a few months ago, and the people massively supported the Adani project and the jobs it would create for Australians. So that's positive news for our two countries. And now that project is proceeding. My understanding is they're aiming to have first coal out of that mine by 2021. Construction's already started.
In terms of revenue, how much of revenue will this mine generate for the Adani Group? How much does it generate for the Australian government, and what are the kind of exports we're looking at?
Yeah, well, look, that's it's a matter for Adani. We of course don't sell the coal or determine the price, but roughly we're looking here at the first stage of the Carmichael Mine to be about 10 million tonnes per annum. So we export around 200 million tonnes of thermal coal a year. That's obviously 5%. My figures and maths are correct. You correct me if I'm wrong, but my maths say that's about 5% of our current exports, which would be around $1.5–2 billion of export revenue for Australia. But this is just the start, right? This is just the start for us because it's a new coal basin. Obviously, you need a first mover to go in and take the risk and build a rail line, which Adani is doing. That will open up more economic opportunities for Australia.
You want more Indian businessmen to take that risk?
I absolutely love more investment from everywhere. We are welcoming of foreign investment. We've built the strength of our resources sector, which I think is the world's greatest, supplying coal, iron ore, gas, gold, copper. I think we have the best resources nation in the world, and that has come on the back of significant investment from overseas and a partnership model where we secure long-term, reliable supplies of commodities. And then what we get back, of course, is in Australia is the jobs and investment in our country. So that recipe has worked. I'd love to repeat it often and many times with Indian businesses too.
All right, talking about the Comprehensive Economic Cooperation Agreement. Now, both sides have been negotiating it. There have been, I think, 19 rounds of negotiations. Do you see it being concluded anytime soon?
Well, look, I'm not directly involved in those negotiations. The Australian government is a strong supporter of both bilateral and multilateral trade agreements. We think we're often a model participant through these discussions. We I think, led in some respects a constructive conclusion of the TPP process, which India wasn't directly involved in, but that was nearly derailed. But we pushed strongly for that to be concluded. We're doing the same with RCEP. We all have a mutual interest in this region to see strong, open and fair and free trade among the region. We, more than any country, support and promote that. So I'm hopeful. I hear good things about the development and progression of the RCEP agreement, but look, you don't want to jinx anything either, so I'm not not about to make predictions right now.
Okay, so you don't want to make predictions, but are there other economic tools and agreements that the Australian government would like to explore with the Indian government to boost trade and investment in the days to come?
Well, look, some years ago, we started a process of a free trade agreement with India directly, a bilateral agreement along the lines of what we have concluded recently with China, South Korea and Japan. We have existing ones with many other countries. But look, my understanding at the moment is the focus is on that RCEP agreement as a way and a vehicle to deliver those benefits between our two countries. However, the discussion around a bilateral free trade agreement with India remains one that we are interested in long term. I do think as we grow our relationship, that will probably be a logical conclusion at some point. But I'm always just trying to focus very much on the here and now and what we can deliver practically between our two countries. And that's why I've been fighting so hard for things like the Adani investment, because that will lock in trade and investment for the long term in a more particular and defined way than any particular diplomatic agreement does.
We've been hearing a lot about the India Economic Strategy report that was prepared by the Foreign Secretary of the Australian government. Which are the key sectors that the Australian government would like to focus on? There were 10 states that this report recommends a focus on, but which are the sectors do you see that are important?
Yeah, so look, we have tried to very much define an achievable set of goals under this agreement. We're not trying to do everything, because usually when you try to do everything you end up achieving nothing. So I think the report usefully seeks to focus our attention on India in a number of different states and also a number of different sectors. So there were 5 that were chosen up front as real immediate prospects in that regard, imminent prospects. There were another 5 sectors that were more long term, but resources is one of them, and I've been appointed the champion of the resources sector. That's why I'm here. The first visit from a minister since the federal election. That's a strong priority for us, but also in the case of education is clearly a strong opportunity between our two countries. Agribusiness and agriculture more generally. We've had some good wins in the last few years of trade between our two countries, but there's also still trade issues obviously there. Tourism is a growth area, we think, as well as other services. So that's really the focus for us, and I think focusing on those tangible and practical goals is the best way forward between our two countries. I've just come from Kolkata, obviously a very strong resource region in your country, and I think there's a lot of two-way sharing of technology, skills, and basic business know-how that can be exchanged between our two countries. So we are very keen to see our what we term our mining engineering and technology sector, or broadly our mining services industry, also look afield from Australia and provide services overseas. So this is the things like safety, environmental rehabilitation at mines, just efficiency, a way of doing business, IT and digitisation of mines. Australian businesses often lead the world in these fields, and I know there's a great desire in Coal India Limited, for example, to increase their efficiency and productivity, and I think Australian businesses can play a key role in that partnership.
That's all we have time for on this episode of The Global Eye. Do tune in, same time next week, for all the big international stories that impact India and the world. Goodbye.